I talk a lot about healing journey, healing ourselves, childhood trauma. Narcissistic parents, my beef with narcissistic parents is endless. But what it all comes down to when we're talking about how do we heal from a childhood aftermath? How do we heal from what happened to us? Basically, in one sentence, it would be we have to come back to our sense of worth. We have to finally feel worthy. And that's not really a concept of like, oh, I'm worthy because somebody on the internet told me I'm worthy or somebody else told me I'm worthy. It's an inner knowing that happens as we heal because we begin to finally see ourselves for who we are and know ourselves who we are because we dismantle a lot of the inner projections and the beliefs and the experiences that made us believe that we are very, very unworthy, right? So learning that we're worthy was a thing that the world was supposed to teach us as we were growing up by how we were treated. And most of us were taught, not only taught that we are, we weren't taught we're worthy, we were taught we were very unworthy, right? Like just the exact opposite by how we were treated, what we were, the things they were saying to us, everything that was happening in our childhood home and in our experience as a child of people who weren't kind or empathic to us, taught us that we are fundamentally unworthy. And what happens is we, as human beings, we never stop pursuing a sense of worth because it feels as something is missing. So when we don't feel worthy, we have this compulsion to finish the business of learning that we're worthy. Because if somebody doesn't know they're worthy, it's almost like they're moving through life hitting on walls all the time. So it's just impossible for a human to stop chasing their worth because it's an unfinished business that comes, that happens through our childhood, and it doesn't allow for a healthy development, which then blocks everything else in our lives. So no matter what we do, if we feel unworthy, we'll keep hitting on walls until we finally grasp on our worth. In this video, what I really want to talk about though, because I talk about finding your worth in all sorts of ways in many of my videos. This is the epitome of the work is doing inner child work, finding your worth, and then just being authentic, being yourself, and express who you are in this world because you're worthy to, you're allowed to. But what I want to talk about today is the things that are not going to make you feel more worthy. Because you probably chasing those things, and I want you to know which are those things, right? So the first one is getting your parent to love you is not going to heal your sense of unworthiness. And I know you think that since they are the ones that didn't teach it to you, when they change, they will teach you differently, right? No, wrong. These people, first of all, they're not going to do it. If somebody raised you to feel fundamentally unworthy, they're not going to change now and make you feel worthy. And even if they do change, then they will change back and forth and back and forth, which means, again, your worth is going to be reliant on how these people treat you. And I guess here would be a good moment to explain this, the reason for this. The mirroring of the external affects us and defines us when we're kids and we have no definition of who we are. But when we're older and we already have these negative definitions, no matter what the external is doing, the definitions tend to stay solidly the same. Which is why even if people treat you nicely or whatever, you still feel unworthy because that's what you believe. So even if the parent comes later and treats you in a certain way, it's very hard to convince an inner system that you're now worthy, especially if this person that is so inconsistent begins to teach you that. It's a scary ground. Another thing that's not going to heal your sense of unworthiness is getting chosen. I don't care who chooses you. I don't care if the hottest, most successful, most incredible man treats you amazingly, whatever. Nobody can unteach you your inner sense of unworthiness. That doesn't mean that finding a great partner in your life who treats you really nicely cannot help you heal a lot of things. But they cannot single-handedly heal your sense of unworthiness. And neither is getting married or having the children or posting photos online and getting a gazillion likes because you've achieved a milestone that you were told is going to make you feel finally worthy, right? Like the stamp of approval of society. You got a man to approve of you. You got society to approve of you, but you're not going to feel any more worthy. Another thing that's not going to make you feel worthy, which a lot of us continue to choose, to chase, is becoming prettier, losing weight, looking differently. Those things can can change our lives in many ways. It can indeed make us more attractive or healthier or whatever. They can change just things about ourselves. But our fundamental worth from within and how we perceive ourselves does not change. Money won't change your sense of worthiness. Success, becoming perfect, being needed, saving people, being useful, people pleasing, achieving more, outperforming everybody, it's not going to make you feel more worthy. It's not going to heal the wound of unworthiness. What is going to heal your sense of unworthiness is if you can meet your younger self and look at her in the eyes, right? Remember your younger self and look at her in the eyes and identify that she's worthy. You have to see it, basically. There's something about finally perceiving it that makes it known. But in more practical layers of how to actually learn that you are worthy and healing your sense of unworthiness is when you treat yourself like someone who is worthy. How is that? What happens if we treat ourselves like somebody who's worthy? How do we treat somebody who we find worthy? We keep promises to them. We speak to them with respect. We don't withhold love or care or rest for ourselves. We live our days and treat ourselves like we're somebody who deserves to be treated nicely. And we try to build a life that becomes the standard of how we deserve to be treated, by how we treat ourselves. And I feel many women fall into the trap of whenever we're taught about stuff with dating and stuff, we're like, if I have really high standards and have a lot of expectations from men and they give me all the things, then I am worthy. I'm defining myself as worthy based on my standards. But the reality is that when you're worthy, the standards are just something that naturally happens because you feel worthy. Your standards are not going to make you feel worthy because it's not going to happen. This is very performative standards and very performative ways of pretending that you're worthy by forcing others to treat you as worthy when you yourself do not do the same. So, doing things in the external world or trying to get the external world to mirror your worth to you is not going to heal your sense of unworthiness. But changing your inner landscape, how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself, what you think about yourself, in a consistent manner is going to make you feel a lot differently in terms of your worth. Because once you do all of that, then you begin to choose differently also in the external world, and then the external world will reflect all of that. And also it will reflect it and you will also be able to receive it and see it. So you will no longer tolerate the things that you used to because you begin to have more self-respect, right? And I know this sounds very like, okay, that's easy, right? Self-respect. How are you going to respect yourself when you were literally humiliated for breakfast on a random Tuesday, or you were treated with so much, in a horrible way. There was no respect. There was no dignity. And obviously, there was no inner learning of worthiness, which is why, since parenting was the moment and the experience that hurt us, our way back is through reparenting. And to get you started with reparenting, think about this. How would you treat yourself if you had to raise yourself for another week? Let's say next week you have to foster yourself, your younger self. I don't know how old she will be, 9, 10, whatever age comes to mind. And let's say next week you're fostering her. She has to stay with you for a week and you are going to be her foster mom and her parent. How are you going to treat her that entire week? Not only the sweet things that you will say to her or taking her to fancy places or fun places, but what are you going to feed her? Right? What are you going to, how are you going to spend the day with her in normal moments when you're just sitting at home? What is she going to wear? Like, are you going to do things for her that will reflect to her that she's worthy? Or are you going to basically barely take care of her and treat her as if she's a burden that you can't even cope to be around? So try it out for the next week. Foster yourself. And constantly think, if I really believed that I'm worthy, how would I be treating myself today? What would I be doing today? And see where that takes you. And if you want a very structured journey back to your worth that teaches you how to repair yourself, how to heal your childhood wounds, Heal is going to be the program for you. And at the end of it, you're also going to meet with me for a session, which will be amazing. And I look forward to it. And yeah, I will see you soon.